Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Gigabyte Aorus Z270 Gaming 7. I'm not even sure whether I'm meant to say Gigabyte now, because they're making a big push about this Aorus branding. You may have seen it on the laptops of old, but they're now bringing it into the motherboard arena as well. And I have a sneaking suspicion, although I'm not again sure whether I meant to say anything about it, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the Aorus may come into the graphics card domain as well. But anyway, so Z270, obviously, because we're talking about Kaby Lake and the new 7th generation CPUs from Intel. Now, the one thing I will say is that the motherboard is compatible with the 6th generation processors as well. So the 6700K, the 6600K, anything with a 6 at the beginning, basically, that is an 1151 CPU, you can run in this board. So if your Z170 board has just gone pop and you're like, I don't know what to do, then you can get the Z270 boards and the CPUs will work in both. If you're actually wondering whether you need to upgrade the CPU as well, then I have done a dedicated 7th generation CPU review that you can find on the channel, and you can find on OC3D, the actual main website as well. So you can go and see all the graphs and all that sort of stuff there. Right, so this. Now the weird thing is Intel, in their infinite wisdom, have decided that we're not allowed to talk about prices on the 3rd, which is the day that I need to put the video up. They're saying they're not allowed to talk about it till the 5th, when the retailers are allowed to put their prices up. So I'm not sure what they expect me to do when I'm meant to be putting the videos up 2 days beforehand. Don't think they've necessarily thought that through very much. So Gigabyte are not been allowed to give me the prices. Retailers have not been allowed to give me the prices. So I had to put my Sherlock Holmes cap on and do a little bit of sniffing around and threaten to do awful things to people's keyboards with like rubbing cheese on them and stuff to get some prices. And we're kind of assuming that these are going to come in around the £200 to £225 mark. But that could change because, like I said, I've had to threaten people with cheesy keyboards to get this information. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a good old look in the box. We're going to talk about a lot of the features that are on the board because it's actually quite ram-packed. We've got some testing and stuff. We've also got some really cool stuff from Cable Mod to talk about because it's not RGB on the board, it's RGBW. So you get a dedicated white line. And I'll tell you a little story about the Cable Mod side of things as well. But I can honestly say I'm stood here at the beginning with a smiley face. So if I've got a smiley face, this is one you want to watch. Okay, so we've got the board and it's on one of the old Gigabyte stands. For the love of God, Gigabyte HQ, make some proper stands so that I can do this sort of stuff properly. What's the point of covering up half the board at the bottom? I mean, to be honest with you, if I find it annoying, the retailers and the people doing the shows are going to find it annoying as well. So get some decent ones sorted. Wind me up. Anyway, right. So in the box, you've obviously already got the board out, so we can get rid of this. And then there's not a great deal in the box, and I have had it all out. You do get an extension cable, and you've got your RGB. Now RGB is normally RGB and then 12 volts. With this, we've got 12 volts, RGB, and then we've also got the dedicated white line as well, which is also kind of cool. And one of the things I can show you on the board is it's down at the bottom here, like this. But the clever thing is, these are actually assignable. Normally with RGB, what happens, there is no standard for the order that RGB goes in. You would think it would be 12 volt RGB, and it would be really simple if it was, but they never are. I mean, it's like these. Look, you can see we've got the 12 volt, and then we've got G, R, B, and then the W. So it's GRB on the Gigabyte ones. On other brands, it's different. There isn't a standard. But what they've done is, like I said, they've made these assignable. So you can go into the software and go into the BIOS and you can tell it which ones to do. And it's quite easy to do because you just turn the red on and then you'll know which colour it needs to be, because if you've just got red on and it's just the red lit, and if it lights up green, you know it's round the wrong way. It's actually quite easy to work out. So by having those assignable, what that does mean is if you've got a case that supports another brand's RGB software and the cables are a different way around because it's been wired specifically for the other brand, this will work with that. So there's no kind of ifs, ands or buts. So if it's something that plugs into a motherboard, it'll work with it and you can sort it out. It's actually kind of cool. But like I said, this will work with RGBs, but these are RGBW. So with the W, you get a dedicated white line on it as well. Now the clever thing about the white is you just turn it on and you do just get a white. Some of the RGBs have got RGB and then a tiny little white LED inside as well in a tiny little, one thing. With Cable Mod, what they've done is they've gone the opposite way with it. And it may divide people on this, but what they've done is they've got an RGB on it, but then they've also got a dedicated white. And the thing with having a dedicated white is it means that it's much brighter. You can dim them, so it's fine, but it does mean that it's much brighter. What it also means as well is if you wanted to, you could mix and match, and you could have your RGB LED on, and you could also have your white LED on as well. It's kind of, like I said, to mix up. They're not able to dance or anything like that, but that's to do with the way that the board's worked out and the way that they assign it. Now what happened is I went to a meeting with Gigabyte many moons ago, and they told me about this new RGB stuff, and I kind of liked it. But I said to them, so what RGB stuff is on the market at the moment for us to be able to buy? And they said about Amazon. So I had a look on Amazon when I was in the meeting with him, and the stuff on Amazon, there wasn't a lot of it. And to be honest with you, when the Amazon stuff can be good for like sticking around the back of your desk and stuff, but it's not necessarily something I would, say about putting in your PC. So when I left the meeting, I got straight on the phone to Cable Mod, and I told them about what was coming. I broke NDA. And I said to them, we need some RGBW kits. And they were like, what? Who's doing that? And anyway, so Cable Mod basically went to the factory pretty much instantly, and they got these out. And these are actually kind of like alpha/beta samples. You don't need the remote kit to work with the Gigabyte stuff because it just plugs in and you use the Gigabyte software. But yeah, these, like I said, these are super early ones. So massive props to Cable Mod. Now the idea was I was going to get these in a case and we we're going to do a big bit in the video about showing them lit up and being used, but because of the way that we've had to end up testing these and stuff, we've just run out of time. There's so much work that we've had to do that I've not been able to find the time to get this built in time for the video. I'm actually filming this the day before NDA because I did all my testing at once. So we've got these. You know that they're going to be coming. They are going to end up with like a Gigabyte approved thing on it because they were designed to work with the Gigabyte boards, but you can buy them and use them in any of your other stuff as well. So that's kind of cool. Let me know what you think about the 2 LED way of doing it. So you have a dedicated white and you still get your RGB rather than having it all in one. The other thing that's kind of cool with the RGBW is if you are a UV freak, what you can do is Cable Mod are going to be doing kits like this with RGB, but rather than the dedicated white, it will be a dedicated UV. So then you can have RGB UV instead. So I think that is all kind of cool. While we're talking about colours and lighting and all that sort of thing as well, I do think that the white on this is kind of brave. And if you're not a fan of the white on the board, they do other models, not the 7, but they do other models with black. So if it offends you or anything like that, you do have other options. Also, when it comes to the lighting on the board, I did take some nice pictures and some nice video to show you it being used. But there are 3 sections or areas or zones, however you'd like to put it, on the board. So we have the I/O area and the sound area down this side, and you can assign this as one colour. Then you have basically the rest of the actual board, which is the CPU area here, the memory, the DIMMs, and all the lights that are around the PCI Express. That's another area. And then you have another dedicated area over here on this section which can be assigned as well. Now this is actually a bit of acrylic, and you can take this off and you can customize the pattern on it if you want. I'm going to assume that eventually you're going to be able to buy different versions of this for you to be able to whiz off. I'm going to assume also as well the system indicators are going to send this out with like the name on it, like PC specialist written down the side, and maybe the name of the system, because obviously all the systems get named. But this is also a kind of really cool area where you could make your own for your projects and name it after your projects, or have sometimes you have designs that go with your theme that you could put on there. So there's a customizing option there that I do really like. So that's all kind of cool. When we do talk about the software and the lighting and everything as well, one of the things that they did do, which I did like, is, I mean, you can set the lights on other brands to be linked to the CPU temperature. But Gigabyte took it a step further, and then you could have it set to CPU usage. You could have it set to CPU fan, or your land speed, or even your system temperature. And you can also schedule the lighting, and so that it will go on and off at certain times. So that's all kind of cool as well. Right, but and the schedule side of it is really cool, because you can have your lights on, but then for argument's sake, if you're the type of person that has your PC on overnight, you could set it so 10 PM or 11 PM every night till 9 o'clock in the morning, the lights turn themselves off, so you wouldn't have to get out of bed and worry about it. So that's kind of cool as well. But when it comes to the, say for argument's sake, the CPU usage, something that I found kind of annoying is they've gone that extra step, and it was like wicked, but then they capped it. And I'll show you with the screenshot. The 0 to 20% was green, and then it went to yellow, and then it went to orange. You couldn't change those colours at all, and you also couldn't change the percentage where it went. So they kind of had a really good idea, and then they capped it. So it was weird, but what I did is I said to Gigabyte about this a while ago, like back in December, and I'm hoping that they do get it sorted, and you should see that software adapt. So if you do end up buying one, then don't just take the software off the CD and think about that and then fit it forever. Look for the updates, because if I've been moaning about it, I would like to think that other reviewers around the world have been moaning about it as well, and listening to end users, and I'm hoping it will get changed. The other thing, when we're talking about software, because we're still in the box and we are talking about software, we might as well get it covered. Software, there is a lot of it on the CD, an awful lot of it on the CD. I wouldn't install everything if I was you, because there's too much of it. You need the RGB Fusion, which is the one to do all your lights. The SIV, which is your system something or other. But anyway, the SIV allows you to do all the fan profiles and everything like that. You are going to need that. And the other one that I really personally liked, to the point I never really talked too much about software, but they've got Gigabyte OSD. It's our on-screen display. And when you're playing your games, it's like Fraps, but with more information, which I thought was epic. You can have your CPU temperature, your CPU usage. There's so many things that you can flash up onto the screen and just see straight away. And you can change the color, you can change the size, you can change where you want it as well. I'm not sure whether it works with DirectX 12 very much yet, but I would like to think that they will get that sorted and have that trailing through. But with the bulk of games being DX11, it's going to work with the bulk of games. The screenshot I showed you was using Unigine, and it worked absolutely fine with that, and it was epic. I mean, if you think about the fact that some of us have multiple screens, it does need to be on the game screen. So if you play with two screens and you think you can have it on the left-hand side, and that's where your chat and stuff is, it doesn't work like that. It has to be on the game screen that's being played. But if you're a multiple game screen user, you could put it on one of the ones, and it's not in your main field of view, just for you to be able to scan and look over to. I'm not sure that I would want it running all the time. If you've just built a system, or you've done overclocks, or you're concerned about something, I don't know, maybe one of your games you think you're getting CPU spikes or memory spikes or something like that, you can put that information up on the screen, and it's really easy for you to see, rather than you to have software running in the background and then go back to look, and then you don't know exactly when it happened. It just could solve a lot more problems, or those really weird times when you're stressed out and you can't work out how to sort it out. That is then the software that you could use for that. So I love them for it. I think it's wicked. Anyway, other things that we have in the box, you've got your back plate, just to give you a look at what it is. Kind of one of the things that we're saying about is you've got not got any of the tangs at the back, you've got the nice soft back. It's a good back plate. It's nothing particularly special about it, but at the same time, there's nothing bad about it either. You get a few SATA cables. Sadly, I wasn't the first person to get this board, so you know what I mean. I'm not sure whether you do just get 3 or whether there's another one missing. But you do get some stickers for you to be able to stick to your cables so that you know what your cables are doing. You can mark them, easily identifiable. And you also get a couple of thermal probes because there are thermal outputs on the board. And if we were to have a look around the board, crikey, we seem to be here forever. So if we have a look around the board, right, first things first, CPU fan, CPU optional up here. You've got 2 more fan outs here. You've got 2 USBs here. USB 3s, they're both vertical, but they do say about the DAC out USB ports on here. These are the ones for the back. And if you're going to use a DAC on the front, or you've got an internal header for that, do you know what I mean? There's many reasons why you could end up wanting a DAC on the front of your case, or maybe you've got a DAC that goes into a drive bay or something and needs an internal USB 3, or you've got one of the ones that normally would go around the back and come in here. You can actually use this one because this is the internal USB 3 DAC. So yeah, and it does say, if we kind of zoom in, you can see, hold it still, there we go, you can see DAC, there we go. Anyway, so there's that side of it, which is all kind of cool. This up here is actually kind of cool as well. You can see that says XMP, this one says turbo. Well, they light up when they're activated as well, so that's another really cool thing. You've got a CMOS switch, and you've got a reset switch, you've got the overclock button, you've got the eco button, and you've got a power switch on the board as well. We come down the side. The only thing that I don't particularly like about it is that they've gone for SATA Express. I mean, I've only ever had one product come in that was SATA Express, and that was a product to test the SATA Express, and it never went retail. So I think this is kind of, you know, less than a bit hopeful. It came, it went, nobody cared about it. All the other manufacturers seem to have ditched SATA Express for this gen as well. So, you know, whatevs. You do get a U.2 port though, which is kind of cool. And then you get a lot of fan headers down here. You can see that you've got the pump one there. You've got the system fans here. I believe one of these ones is a pump header as well. It's just not massively clearly. I think it's a system fan 2. That's the pump header. And then we're looking along the bottom, see if we've got any more. We've got 2 USB 2s, which is nice, because obviously there's loads of stuff that connects to USB 2 internal now, other than your case. Power supplies, AIO coolers, all kinds of stuff that needs to talk into the OS. You get a PCI output poster there, which is kind of cool. And then you've got another fan header up here. Power-wise, up here, you've got 10K black caps, and you've got nice chokes on there as well. You can see that there's quite a few phases around the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you've got 11 phases around the outside of the board there. So there's plenty of power to be able to go into your CPU to be able to keep overclocks nice and stable. You've also got protection around the PCI Express. You can actually see that they've got a bit of an angle on them on this side, but there's an extra pin that goes in this section. It sticks out the back here. Don't know whether you can see it. So it does give it extra strength. They've gone with the individual support or protection around the DIMMs on here, meaning that you've got the strips for each one. But with the Gigabyte stuff, as you've seen in the pictures, there are LEDs or RGBs down through the middle as well. There's also some pinouts here so that you can do manual voltage checking for those few of you out there that would ever dare to get your multimeter on your board. And then they spent a lot of time with the audio on this as well. It's actually got Soundcore 3D. It's creative hardware and software. There's a quad-core creative underneath that. Expanding on for that, like I said, software from creative, hardware from creative. And you've also got some Nichicon. I can never say it right, but you know what I mean. Let me see if we can see on the No, I was going to try and get in so that we can actually see where it says the fact about the Japanese capacitors. There you go, just there, look. There we go, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, anyway, so my pronunciation has obviously not been great, but you get what I'm trying to say. You can also see here about the killer Ethernet. You've actually got a killer Ethernet and an Intel Ethernet on this, so you get the best of both worlds. I'm an Intel fan, some people aren't. You've got USB 3 here. This is USB 3.1, and that's your A. You've got a USB 3.1C there. Two more USB 3s. You've got HDMI and a DisplayPort. These are your DAC outs, but these are also USB 2, so you can use them for whatever you want. I was using them to flash the BIOS. So, you know, I mean, they're multi-use. PS2, and then your audio at the back. As you can see, you've got gold-plated pickups on there as well as the optical out. So there's lots and lots of options. You can actually, under here, see the RGB section. So, lots of stuff on the board. Not a great deal of stuff in the box, but we had a lot to talk about. Let's crack on to performance. Okie dokie, so on to the performance. One of the things with the boards is, to be honest with you, there's been a lot of BIOS changes, and that's been across the boards with all the brands. And the Gigabyte was, you know, they were bringing them out fairly thick and fast as well, which is both annoying for me, because obviously we want to try and test on the latest BIOS that we can, but also it's a good sign in the fact that they are developing and trying to bring stuff out. And to be honest with you, with companies like that, it's more of a worry when you don't get any than when you do. So with the Gigabyte stuff, we ended up testing it on the F3H. It was still a pre-release BIOS. I'm going to assume that by the time you guys watch this, there is going to be a newer one. I'm also going to assume that when you do get your boards, make sure that you have a look and try and get your boards on the latest BIOS straight away. So go to the website, download it, put it on a USB stick, go into the Q-Flash software in the BIOS, flash it. There are two options. There's a full mode and kind of a quick mode. Always make sure that you do the full mode if you're not in a massive rush or something. To be honest with you, for the extra minute or so that it might take, I would just always go with the full mode anyway. So get your BIOS up to date. It can make a huge difference. With some of the other boards, like other brands, we've actually seen temperature drops because of better BIOS. So keep that in mind, keep on it. One of the things that Gigabyte, in a strange way, they were aware I had some ridiculously quick memory because I've got 4,266 megahertz. Now, I'm not expecting or assuming, you know, swathes of you guys to go out there and buy it. But for a reviewer, when we're trying to pick out the differences between the ability of the board, sometimes quick memory can trip over and overclock. So it's a really good thing for me to be able to pick out the ones that are good as like a mainstream board and the ones that have got that extra bit of kick. Gigabyte, I personally think they shot themselves in the foot, because what they did is any time I tried to enable 4,000 megahertz memory, it downclocked it straight to 3,600. And I do think whoever decided that at HQ needs to go away and have their heads testing, because the sad thing was I do believe this board was capable of more. It did 3866 and it did 3866 memory at really good voltages. I was even starting to play around with timings. It's an incredibly strong board, and I think when they did that, I can understand they were probably thinking I was just going to moan, but I'm quite capable of being able to go in and change all the voltages and manually set them up, because I did with this. I didn't just leave the VCCIO on auto and the system agent on auto. I was actually bringing those back into check and really turning the volts right down, to be fair. Because they do with really quick memory, at least with the pre-launch stuff, which is all I've got experience with at the moment. I can't talk about what it's going to be like in a month or 6 weeks' time. But they were putting a lot of volts through that, so you do need to go in and manually set it. So what I would do is I'd go in and see what the auto is setting it to. You can straight away, unless you're running really quick memory, you can straight away turn it down to 1.2. Don't leave it at 1.2. I'm not telling you that's where it should be. Turn it down to 1.2, VCC, IO and system agent voltage. Then what I would do is pick one of them and then I would turn it down a notch, run a stability test. If it's stable, turn it down a bit more, turn it down a bit more until it gets unstable, and then you go back to the stable one. Then you go and do the other one and you work that one back as well. And then you'll end up with both of those two being stable but being at significantly lower volts than it thinks it needs to. Why do you want to do that? Because it will bring the temperatures down, and those 2 volts, if left on the auto, I had one of the boards, not a Gigabyte board, but I had one of the boards that was putting 1.45 volts through the VCC I/O and the system agent voltage. And that over a period of time, if you get one of the weaker CPUs, weaker bit of silicon, it will kill it. And over a long period of time, running those sort of volts as well, it could even end up killing strong bits of CPU as well. And to be honest with you, do you really want to be going through that process where you don't know whether it's your board that's died, whether you don't know whether it's your CPU? And to be honest with you, everyone's going to blame the motherboard at that point as well. And it's I kind of get that, you know, the motherboard did put the volts through, but to be honest with you, it's up to us as PC Master Race enthusiasts to be able to learn our systems and to be able to bring those things in check. And those voltages are something that I'm going to be very, very hot on with my reviews this time around. I will be doing a guide on how to set up fast memory and how to bring all your voltages into check properly, because to be honest with you, some of them scared me a bit. But anyway, so it was definitely capable of more. But we ended up with 5.1 gigahertz at 1.325 volts, which that is actually, for a 5.1 gigahertz run, that's the lowest I managed to get the volts. I did manage to get 4,000 with one of the other boards, so I was needing a little bit more volts to be able to keep the cache happy. But it was a really, really good tight voltage on that. One of the things that I did notice though is the temperatures were quite high. We ended up, it was running up in the 80s, in the upper 80s. One of the other boards with 4,000 megahertz memory and 5.1, it was about 10 degrees lower. So that's another thing, that one of the reasons why I was saying sometimes the BIOS might bring your temperatures down, and I would genuinely hope that this is going to be one of the boards that will cure that, because it is a BIOS setting somewhere hidden that we can't go in and change, that the voltage is up significantly higher than it needs to be, and if they bring that down, it will bring the temperatures down as well. So that's going to be one to watch. But anyway, so yeah, we ended up with 5.1 gigahertz, 3,866 megahertz memory, 1.325 volts on the CPU, and then 85 degrees max on the temps. Now, one of the things I will say about the voltages and stuff, don't just go smashing voltages in and copying, for want of a better term, because you do really need to work your CPU and find what yours can do, because there is a thing called the silicon lottery. And the thing with the silicon lottery is they're not all the same. They may be very similar, but you don't want to be selling yourself short with a CPU that may overclock more, it may even do it on less volts. I know people out there that are only getting 5 gigahertz, but they're getting 5 gigahertz on insanely low volts. Bring those volts down, bring those temps down. Why? It'll last longer, and it'll mean you can have a quieter system. That is obviously got to be amazing. If you don't care about those sort of things, then there's part of me is like, why are you bothering to overclock anyway? If you're one of those auto people, yeah, you don't belong in the PC Master Race. Anyway, well, not necessarily the PC Master Race. You deserve a PC, but you're not what I would call a proper PC enthusiast. I'm going to set off some like horrendous kind of argument about this. But, you know, whatevs, Trevs. Yeah, I know I'm going to regret that. Anyway, so performance. And ding! Really good. Really good. Surprisingly good, actually. There was a couple of tests where it was at the bottom of the graphs. You can go and have a look on the OC3D website as well. I'll put all the links around and about. I'll also put all the links onto the CPU review as well for the 7700K and the 7600K, because I did do both. But when it does come to performance, some of them were all right, some of them were great. In some of the graphs, the Gigabyte was top. And considering, like I said, about like the BIOS thing and the fact that I think I could have got more memory out of it, I was genuinely really impressed with the performance of the board. IDA 64, for example, bringing it up. The stock side of it was a bit pants. You know, the calculations and stuff like that is stock. And when I test stock, what I do is I put 3200 megahertz memory in. I go into the BIOS, I enable XMP, and then I just run all the tests. I don't do any other changes. It's kind of a really good entry-level beginner setup with the old XMP. It's normally a level we don't have to worry too much about voltages and stuff like that. So with that, but with the stock result being a bit pants, that says to me that's a BIOS thing. And I can guarantee you over the next 6 to 8 weeks, if I came back and re-reviewed it, which I won't because I've never got time to do things twice, if I was to come back, I guarantee you it would be significantly quicker because stock runs is BIOS. Well, then when you introduce the overclock with the manual settings and me tweaking stuff and, you know, making stuff better, you can see with IDA 64, straight top, just beat everything. If we then go on to Cinebench, again, top. The stock, again, not brilliant. But one of the things I do need to say about these results is there's not a massive amount between any of the results. So when I say top and when I say bottom, you know, sometimes it's like a 1/10 of a point in it. So keep that in mind as well. But at the end of the day, when we do have to put stuff in graphs, and let's face it, every single one of these results I have tested on all of the boards as well, before NDA, it's been a lot of time to be able to put these stuffs in all the graphs. So don't forget, if you do want to see more of graphs, we've done more benches, we've done Real Bench, Geekbench, Passmark, we've done Sandra results, we've done all the PC marks. There's literally loads more results on the OC3D website that you can go and have a look at. I just pick a few to put in the videos because let's face it, if I talked about all of them, the videos would all be 90 minutes long. And then gaming. Now, gaming was one of the ones where the stock results were okay. Do you know what I mean? It was in the middle of the pack. And to be honest with you, with the overclock results, it was in the middle of the pack as well. There's something about it that I think that the gaming results are going to be another one of those areas that will mature more when the BIOSes do start to come through. So the one thing I can say is if you do go and have a look on the Overclock 3D website, there were a lot of tests where the Gigabyte stuff was top. And when I say it's top, that means basically it's just gone to ASUS and they did a cracking job. And we're on to the conclusion now. And that this basically is the point when I get to kind of go, they did really bloody well. They did really well. Gigabyte, a couple of years ago, they did lose their way. And it all went kind of west a bit, really. I personally think Gigabyte HQ got a bit arrogant and they kind of rested on their laurels and they were just like, well, sell anyway. I mean, when they did the whole thing where they got rid of the green and they went red to go and copy everybody else, it was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Whoever made that decision, I'm still saying it now, they're going to hate me for it, I don't care. Whoever made that decision literally needed sacking. I don't care whose cousin or uncle or nephew he was, he did not have a clue. They took away one of the, you know, one of the kind of like, the things about Gigabyte. Why do you go and buy a Gigabyte board? They do the sniper. It's green. We'll go and buy that one. I want a green NVIDIA theme system. What board do you need? I need a sniper. It was just, it went hand in hand and they got rid of it. It's like, why? So, yeah. Now we're back to the new stuff. Now the design and everything on this, it's really strong. I really like it. There's bits about the software I really like. There's bits about the software I don't like, but it's got some proper promise there. There's literally, you can just see it's just like, fix a couple of little things and it's going to be epic. I actually really like the fact that they've not just gone RGB as well. I really like the fact that they've gone with the RGBW, which as I said, you can then have RGB UV. Cable mod come through, and I do need to give them a big props as well, because like I said, I rang them, I was like on the phone, I was like, I've just heard about this, I'm not meant to be telling you, but, and the reason why I did that is because I knew that they would sort it out, and then also, and this is the most important thing, there's no point Gigabyte releasing RGB stuff onto the market and then you lot out there only being able to go to Amazon and buy crap. Because the stuff on Amazon, it's all right. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, if it's hidden behind furniture and stuff like that, that's cool. But you need something that's going to have a decent tape on it so that you can stick it to your case. Or they're going to do magnetic versions. And they're going to have different mounts for you to put it. And they're going to have ways for you to be able to link the inside of your case to the outside of your case. So there's, you know, we needed a PC brand to add the little bits onto it. And like I said, with this, they've gone RGBW. So you've got an RGB light on it with a dedicated white. And the dedicated white does kind of work into this. Now, the white on the board, I'm going to admit, I'm a white fan. Lots of the people that follow me know I'm a white fan. So listen to me when I say what I'm going to say now, because it's going to be surprising. The white, I love. But it probably would sell more if it was black. And that's not before the trolls start going on about racist stuff and anything like that. I do think white is incredibly, incredibly brave. Now, I would buy it because, like I said, it's white. It fits in with the way that I like to build my rigs. But there are a lot of people out there that aren't. Luckily, they do have some models. Then it's not the Gaming 7, but they do have some other models in the range that if this is not the thing that you want and you want a more monochrome system and have lights in, you know, they look pretty much the same. It's just this bit on it would be black. So if you like the look of the board and you like the features and stuff, go and have a look for the black ones. But I do think that they probably would have been better off having maybe 1 or 2 white models and then the rest of them black, just to kind of keep it more understated. I think basing an entire range on white is, like I said, incredibly brave. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to see these just selling hand over fist. And I don't mean at SIs, because SIs are just going to put in systems what they pretty much are told to, or whatever gives them the best margins. I'm on about individual motherboard sales across the counter as just a motherboard. I'd love to see the numbers for the white ones over the black ones. I'm also going to assume that I'm hoping that the black one's going to be readily available, so there's a fair competition. But this range of stuff is something that I'm going to be watching specifically, because everything else is there. And it does make me wonder whether the white is going to put people off. I'd love to know what you think underneath in the comments though. You know, is white something that you would have? Is white something that would make you decide not to? Put it underneath, because you can bet your bottom dollar Gigabyte are going to be on this video like a tramp on a £5 note on a windy day. So, so yes. So I love it. I'm not sure how many of you guys will. You know, there's a good bit of balance there. So if you think about it, and there's also a little bit of market research going on as well when you think about it, that I'm asking your thoughts so that we can get it underneath. But obviously, there are other brands out there that have got white offerings as well. So it kind of comes in kind of nice. The lighting on it, I really like. The only thing that I did say with the software that was annoyed me, that you couldn't set the temperature ranges and you couldn't set the colours that it changed to. They need to get that sorted, and it's an easy fix in the software as well. If they do that, then that was genuinely something that I think is kind of cool, because we've all pretty much got windows now, unless you've got your case hidden underneath your desk or something. And to be able to, when you're gaming, however you do it, gaming, that's how I do it, to be able to just kind of look and you know what temperature that your CPU is at, or within a specific range. You know, there's certain things like that that I did really like. I've not said about the award yet, and we're going to give it the OC3D Enthusiast Award. And that's because it pretty much packs everything that you could want onto the board. There's a good amount of lighting. It might have been nicer if there wasn't a specific zone down the middle. It would have been nicer if we could have had like the CPU as a zone and the RAM as a zone. I know that most of us are going to end up changing them all the same colour anyway, but it's options. You can change it if you wanted. For argument's sake, it might have been nice to have been able to have turned the lights in between your memory white, so that they light your, I don't know, maybe you bought some red dims, or maybe you bought some white dims, and you want to light them up, and then you want something different around your graphics cards. I don't know. Options are good. Even if we do change them all the same colour, it's nice for us to at least be able to decide. But the thing was for me was the performance, and it did do really good, despite the fact that they did, for want of a better term, they did gimp that BIOS. And I ended up testing a few different BIOSes as well. And I tested a BIOS on another board, because I do have the Gigabyte Gaming 9 here at the moment as well. And they've all got that kind of 4000 megahertz cap. So I don't know whether they're nervous about it or something, I don't know. And it's not necessarily a killer for you guys, because, like I said, I wouldn't expect you to be buying 4K memory and running that at the moment. Do you know what I mean? It may evolve into us being able to do that sort of thing. But 3200 megahertz is kind of a nice spot. You know what I mean? If you're looking for me, what should I get? 3200 megahertz is a nice spot. Anything below 2800 megahertz on this range is kind of it's a bit underpowered. 2133, don't bother. 2400, don't bother. 2666, do you know what I mean? 2800 would literally be the point where I would call as an entry level. And if you're looking for something that you can just kind of grab, put in with minimal effort, because you will still have to do the manual voltages, like I said to you before, but you're looking for good performance to go with your i7, you really are that guy that's looking for, you know, cracking performance, and you don't mind paying a few extra quid, then 3600 memory is a good stop without too many headaches. They will, within, I would say, once the BIOS is matured, I will say most of them are going to be able to do 3866. But then with those, that you are going to need to be able to know your way around the BIOS. Once you go above 3600 megahertz, that is proper enthusiast territory. And you'll know whether you are or you're not. It's not something that you're just going to be able to buy, XMP it, and then just expect it to be amazing. And, you know, work fine. So if you get what I mean by that, then you'll understand why I'm trying to give you that little bit of extra usage information. The BIOS on them as well. The BIOS is very Gigabyte. It's now kind of a reddy sort of orangey colour, and it's if you're used to Gigabyte stuff, it's laid out in a very familiar way. But it's also kind of a bit backwards and kind of spread out, you know, weirdly. They do the kind of beginner section, because there's an advanced and like a beginner one. The beginner one is a little bit more graphical and it does look a bit nice. But when you F7 into the advanced mode, it is quite basic. There's not a great deal there. It does give you most of what you need, but you do kind of also get the feeling that they could have just stuck a lot of it in, you know, in a better menu thing rather than having it all in separate places. But I do think that they're going to I do think that will evolve. And the only thing that I will say, and this is when you start paying attention to the marketing and the branding and you start noticing about colours. Well, they seem to have, on the box, do you remember when everything was red? Everything was ROG red? Well, I do believe that at one point they started putting oranges on the box. And they started doing that as well. So there's still accents of where they could have just had that as a grey line or a white line, or I don't know, make it, yeah, it's just little things like this are things that I tune into, and it makes me chuckle in the fact that they all seem to kind of run around like sheep, or like sheep centipedes. And yeah, the one eats the grass, and then the middle one doesn't, and then the other one puts it on their box, and yeah, they'll use orange as well. Anyway, so I'm going to leave you with that. I saved my best bit for the end, because I had to get a dig in about the colours. Oh no, I did it with the green as well. Oh well, anyway. So you can have a chuckle if you understand what I'm on about. I'm assuming that we're going to have quite a lot of discussion in the video comments underneath, and it kind of echoing out around the world. I don't care, that's my job. So when we kind of boil it all down, the Gigabyte Z270 Gaming 7, I'm not going to say Z270X, shut up, Z270 Gaming 7. Do I like it? I love it, and it's really, really nice to have Gigabyte back. Just whoever's deciding colours, get a new one.